Welcome back. And no, I'm not here to talk about MJ Melendez. I mean, the Royals finally demoted him, why should I? And it's not like the rest of the offense is doing much better. After last year's offense had to be duct taped together for the playoffs, the Royals went out and acquired Jonathan India. What? Is that not enough for you? Just be grateful they did something, jeez. Yes, that was the only major move they made. True, they also added Kevin Biggio and Mark Canha, but both were on minor league deals during spring training. They did try to add others, notably Anthony Santander and Jerickson Profar, but both signed elsewhere. In all honesty, they may have dodged two massive bullets, only time will tell. I could talk about some random guy in Omaha who should be next in line for a promotion. I could also talk about some random player the Royals should trade for, maybe someone who could immediately improve the offense. Instead of all that, I want to talk about a former all-star first baseman for the Royals, a fan favorite who could find the gaps in the outfield. No, not him, Ken Harvey. Why did you think? Never mind. So Ken Harvey, he was not around the Royals for long. In fact, he's not even among the top 100 Royals in terms of total appearances. Vinny Pasquantino, believe it or not, passed him very early in the season. Now, Vinny's career is just getting started. Ken Harvey, on the other hand, had already played his last major league game. I'll pop that list back up as there's a wide range of players on here. You have former Rookie of the Year Bob Hamlin, failed prospects Dee Brown and Joey Gathright, cult favorites like Paulo Orlando and Aaron Guile, plus whatever the hell Yuniesky Betancourt was. Among that list is a single all-star appearance from none other than Ken Harvey. Damn it, Uni, not now. Closest you ever got to an all-star game. So hindsight is 2020, and looking back, Harvey even sniffing the all-star game seems crazy. But that appearance was honestly deserving. To a point, I'll get there. Possibly more surprising, at one point there was genuine excitement around Ken Harvey, and it was easy to see why. The story goes back to 1999, when Ken Harvey was a junior in college with the Nebraska Cornhuskers. For me to simply say he had a monster season may be understating it. He hit .478, which led the nation, with 23 home runs across 57 games played. He also stole 13 bases. Yes, this guy stole 13 bases over a single season in college. He was the focal point of Nebraska's 1999 Big 12 championship, earning first-team All-American honors and being named the Easton Redline Defensive Player of the Year. Again, yes, this guy won an award for his defense. Most notably, he was a finalist for the 1999 Golden Spikes, losing out to future Rocky and 2002 Rookie of the Year Jason Jennings. Just saying, only one of these names is an all-star. Off topic, but the most random former major leaguer I've ever met may actually be Eric Munson. This was years ago during my sports marketing days. He will be a major league hitting coach one day. Back to Harvey. Despite gaining a ton of attention nationally, the Royals would not draft him until the 5th round of the 1999 draft. They thought they found the steal of the draft, and who could blame them? A Golden Spikes finalist dropping to the 5th round? What's the catch? Well, there were questions regarding whether his speed and defense could hold up at the professional level, and if his fitness and health could also hold up. The bat was never the issue, but most everything else was. Kevin Long, then the manager of the Class A Spokane Indians, was all in on Ken Harvey. After finishing his first minor league season hitting .397 and flirting with .400 much of the season, again leading the league, Long proudly proclaimed, "I believe that Ken Harvey was the best hitter in the draft." Now I've seen cartons of milk age better than that statement. Here are some notable hitters from that draft, all of whom signed with their team. I'll include two separate slates for players that were drafted before and after Harvey. No reason to dwell on these names, though there is one name I left off, and I left him off on purpose. A local guy, actually. Went to high school at Fort Osage, college in Maple Woods, drafted in the 13th round quite a bit after Harvey. You may have heard of him. Some guy named Albert Pujols. So the Royals thought they got the steal of the draft in Ken Harvey. Just imagine what the Cardinals thought when they picked up Albert Pujols in the 13th round of that same draft, right out of the Royals' backyard. Regardless, the Royals viewed Harvey as someone that could anchor a lineup for years to come. He was gaining attention among prospect rankings, usually among the better Royals prospects, but never a top prospect, with the same issues from before the draft being echoed. Harvey would continue to rack up hit after hit, and in 2001, after a .338 batting average in Double-A Wichita, Harvey would make his major league debut as a September call-up. He only played in 4 games, with a 2-hit game against Detroit showcasing his potential. Despite this, he would spend the entire 2002 season in Triple-A Omaha. Now he hit a perfectly respectable .277, .342, .465 with 20 home runs and 30 doubles, but this was far off the .338 he hit over the last half of 2001. He turned it around in the Arizona Fall League, where his .479, 537, 752 line set the league record. Baseball America mentioned he was experimenting with a new stance during the season, which could explain the lower numbers in AAA. Tony Pena, manager of the Major League team, watched Harvey in person. When he asked Harvey what he could do for him in the majors, he replied, "I will hit for you." I mean, before you joke, Harvey did hit for Pena 269 times. Hell, he'd already done it 3 times for Tony Muser, and he'd even do it once for Bob Schaefer. That's 269 promises delivered to Pena alone. What a great gift. Baseball America believed Harvey would get his chance in the majors the following season, and they were correct. He would not just make the opening day roster, he would serve as a designated hitter. He had 2 hits, both doubles off Mark Burley. I talked about this game a little more in my recent opening day special. The Royals won, and to date, this is the only time the Royals as a team shut out their opponent on opening day. That seems surprising when you remember Tony Pena used a coin flip to determine who would start the game on the mound. True story. I think the best word to describe Ken Harvey's rookie season is acceptable. He was barely better than replacement level, and his 84 OPS plus was not too good, especially for a first baseman. But for a rookie who had historically dominated in the minors, it's enough to stick around. Plus, it helps that the offense around him was hitting around or above average. They could afford to give Harvey time to adjust in the majors. But when you break the numbers down, the stats get a little alarming. First, the splits versus left-handed pitching and versus right-handed pitching. Against lefties, he dominated, hitting .333, .377, .564. However, he hit .234, .283, .334 against righties. That's over a 300-point difference in OPS. Against lefties, Harvey was performing similar to Bobby Witt Jr. during his 2024 season, where he finished second in MVP voting. Against righties, however, he was almost identical to Maikel Garcia's 2024. Garcia, for what it's worth, had the worst OPS plus among full-time starters on the 2024 Royals, which is really saying something if you watch that team play nearly daily. Imagine turning Bobby Witt Jr. into 2024 Maikel Garcia just by making a pitching change. That was a major liability with Ken Harvey in 2003. Baseball Prospectus pointed out another alarming stat. His ground ball to fly ball ratio only ranked behind Luis Castillo, Juan Pierre, and Jox Jones. Castillo and Pierre were both high contact, speedy leadoff hitters. Neither had power, but all they had to do was hit a single. Their speed could get them in a scoring position, if not third base, in just a few pitches. It also helped that both were good defensively. In fact, Castillo won 3 Gold Gloves at second base. Again, just saying, Juan Pierre was never an all-star. Now, imagine that type of hitter, but they cannot steal bases consistently, if at all, can only play first base, and to be honest, they probably should not be playing defense at all. That was Ken Harvey. I'm sure some expected Harvey to be a power hitter. After all, he was built like one and played first base. But he was more of a gap hitter, doing a better job racking up doubles than home runs. Even in the minors, in 2001 before his major league debut, he only hit 15 home runs between high A and double A, but with 29 doubles and even 4 triples. There was nothing wrong with that, but Harvey was playing a position where that was not common. Yes, Doug Mankiewicz exists, but he was a Gold Glove defender, the exact opposite of Harvey. There may have been concerns, but Harvey's spot on the 2004 Royals was secure. While the Royals struggled as a team, Harvey looked like the high average hitter he was in the minors. He ended the month of May hitting .358, .400, .537. At one point in June, he was flirting with .380. A couple months into the season, and Harvey was contending for the batting title. Even with a slower June, he was still hitting .327, .372, .469 when the calendar turned to July. With the All-Star break approaching, Harvey seemed like a favorite to be selected. In a prior video, I mentioned Mark Redmond's All-Star campaign and why he was selected in the first place. Redmond's appearance has become a meme or a running joke in Kansas City. Let's be honest, he had zero business being in the game, but Harvey had a case. Yes, he struggled entering the break, however he was still hitting .305, .353, .452. I'm sure flirting with the league lead in batting average helped his cause, but was he the most deserving Royal? I think that's a matter of opinion, but in my opinion, he absolutely was, and by a wide margin. First off, I have to mention Carlos Beltran. Late June, he was traded to the Houston Astros, who was then a National League team. I promise I'll rage about that trade some other day, but that's not the focus today. Not long after, he was voted by the fans to be an All-Star starter, but for the Royals, not the Astros. Voting began long before he was traded, and it did not conclude until after the trade. By rule, he cannot represent the Royals or the American League, and it took an injury to Ken Griffey Jr. for him to join the National League All-Stars on a technicality. If Allard Baird waits until after the All-Star break to trade Beltran, it's very possible Ken Harvey never becomes one. Back to reality. When thinking of All-Stars on the early to mid-2000s Royals, the first name to pop up is, naturally, Mike Sweeney. Well, one problem. He was hurt. On July 2nd, Sweeney would miss a game due to back spasms, and he would not return to the lineup until July 9th, 8 days later. The All-Star rosters were revealed during this time. Sweeney never hit the injury list, and he would return before the break, but still, I believe it played a factor. Beyond Sweeney, I'm not sure who else he would nominate. I suggest Joe Randa, but he was also hurt. He would not return until after the break. Matt Stairs was hitting fine in his first season in Kansas City, but he was not close to Harvey's stats. Jaime Cerda had a 2.28 ERA out of the bullpen when the rosters were announced, but at the time he walked as many as he struck out. The other option was, believe it or not, rookie Zach Greinke, who had recently been promoted. He only made 9 starts before the break with a respectable 3.86 ERA, but he also had a 1-6 record. I know win-loss records are meaningless, but part of the reason Mark Redman made the 2006 team was his winning record. Yes, every other stat sucked, but look at that record. Just look at it. So to recap, the All-Star options were Mike Sweeney, who was hurt when the rosters were announced, Joe Randa, who was even more hurt, Matt Stairs, who was hitting fine but not as good as Ken Harvey, Jaime Cerda, who was pitching worse than his ERA suggested, Zach Greinke, who had a 1-6 record, and Ken Harvey, who was recently flirting with the batting title. I also would have picked Harvey, and even Royals fans at the time were leaning Harvey. Don't believe me? While browsing Wayback Machine searching for info on Sweeney's injury, I found this poll from the Kansas City Star asking fans if Mike Sweeney or Ken Harvey should be the All-Star. I tried voting, but it wouldn't let me. However, it did let me view the result, and of the 411 people that voted, 332 or 81% picked Ken Harvey over Sweeney. We can look back at this in hindsight knowing how Harvey's career turned out, but in the moment, Ken Harvey was the most logical and most deserving All-Star, and on July 5th, when the rosters were announced, there was zero issue with him making the team. Now, should I end the paragraph here or mention he struck out with the bases loaded in his only at-bat? I think I'll end it here. You would hope the All-Star appearance would help Harvey break out of his slump, but instead the slump continued. After the break, he would only hit .256, .311, .366, and the numbers look worse if you go back before the break. He ended the day on June 3rd hitting .379, the highest it would be all year. However, he would only hit .230 the rest of the way, with an OPS of .629. He was losing at-bats to the recently promoted Calvin Pickering, who was chasing Omaha's home run record while in the minors. All the shock and awe on Harvey's high minor league batting average had shifted to Pickering's home run potential. And even when Mike Sweeney suffered a season-ending injury, the team just shifted Matt Stairs to first base and played Abraham Nunez in the outfield. Abraham Nunez! Even he got at-bats over Ken Harvey. It was a lost season for the Royals, but to quickly toss aside someone who was literally just named an All-Star with a solid track record in the minors, not too long earlier they tried playing him in the outfield in interleague play just to keep both his bat and Mike Sweeney's in the lineup. They played this guy in the outfield. That's how highly they viewed Harvey's bat just a couple months earlier. Halfway through September, Harvey was still optimistic he could raise his .288 batting average back over .300 over the remaining 18 games. Unfortunately, his season would end only 3 days later. After starting 2004 safely in the first base designated hitter mix, Harvey would not even have a roster spot secured for 2005. He had to compete with Calvin Pickering for the designated hitter role, the same guy who took at-bats from him in the prior year. Baseball Prospectus mentioned possibly platooning both due to Harvey's strong 2003 against lefties. But here's the thing, that platoon split disappeared in 2004. If anything, he had a reverse split. That, plus Mike Sweeney being healthy, made any sort of platoon difficult. Despite Harvey having the better average over spring training, neither really did well. Ultimately, Pickering's power, or threat of it to use Bob Dutton's words, was chosen over the recent All-Star. Ken Harvey would be optioned to AAA, while Calvin Pickering would be the team's opening day starter at designated hitter, with a healthy Mike Sweeney returning to first base. Pickering would hit a home run on opening day, the last of his major league career. Seriously, he was sent back to Omaha before April even ended, where he spent the rest of the season. Let's just say he had a higher strikeout rate than MJ Melendez before his recent demotion. Harvey, on the other hand, would hit well in Omaha, and by the end of April he would get one more chance on the big league roster. After only 12 games, a back injury was sent him to the injured list, and a month later he was transferred to the 60-day DL. This ended not just his season, and not just his Royals career, but also his Major League career. The Royals released him after the season, and while he would return to the organization for 2006, he would not play a single game, majors or minors. He briefly played in Minnesota's minor league system in 2007, but that would mark the end of the road for Ken Harvey's playing career. Or so you think. Believe it or not, Ken Harvey would play baseball in Kansas City again, but not for the Royals. On June 11, 2008, Harvey would sign with the independent Kansas City T-Bones, just hoping for one more chance. He would play a big role for the team and help lead the team to the championship despite a losing record overall. He briefly returned for 2009, but that would be the end of his playing career. When thinking of comparisons, I keep on going back to Billy Butler. Both were primarily first basemen, but below average defensively, which limited them to designated hitter. Both had some power, but were known more for contact and finding gaps in the outfield despite appearing to be power hitters. Both had their fans, but also had their fair share of haters, with the lack of power not helping. Both had a single All-Star appearance, with each generating some sort of controversy or even just a debate over it, and the very moment their bats fell below average, both were discarded quickly. Ken Harvey speed ran Billy Butler's career before Billy was ever promoted to Kansas City. I know that's not a perfect comparison. I'm sure Baseball Reference can help me think of a better one. Oh dear God, oh no, nope, let's just get that right off the screen. Most fans may remember Ken Harvey for the wrong reasons, but at one point he seemed like a long-term anchor for the Royals lineup. Despite the immediate excitement, the Royals gave up on him even quicker. Regardless, for one moment, despite what others may say, he was a deserving All-Star. Normally, this is the part of the video where I tell you to like this video and subscribe to this channel. Normally, I would even suggest sharing this video. I would also suggest checking out my prior videos. My latest video focused on a moment in time where the Royals came dangerously close to firing Ned Yost, plus the questionable replacement that was rumored. I'd also suggest checking out my videos on other mediocre Royals, including Kyle Davies, Johnny Giavotella, and Brian Bullington. Instead, I'm ending this with that one time Matt Stairs plunked Ken Harvey in the back, if only because I haven't used the clip yet. Until next time.
Is it deep enough to score the man? Robinson very fast. Here comes the throw. And Harvey, was he hit by the throw trying to cut it off?
He didn't try to cut it off. He was in cutoff position, and the ball hit him in the back.
Oh my.
Much like Sweeney got hit in the back with a throw from right field on the ball.